welcome to another episode of Straight Talk with Roger Hunt, Unscripted. I am your host, Roger Hunt. Today we have an exciting and positive, uplifting guest with us. He's an ordained Christian minister and a graduate of St. Louis Christian College. Please help me welcome Reverend Ray Charles Robinson. Ray Charles. Yes. You know, when I saw that name, Ray Charles, I said, man, another Ray Charles, man. Did you play like Ray Charles?
No.
Sing.
Sing.
You can sing a little bit. Can you hoop? You hoop in the pulpit? Yeah, I'm just having some fun with you, man.
Right.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, man. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna tell you, and I've known you. We're just gonna say I've known you for some years, man.
Yes.
And I'm gonna go back to I think I met you first in 1980. I started at the company in '86 when we worked together a little bit, just a little bit of history.
Yeah.
And then ended up being one of your managers, probably 1989. Probably '89 was when we first started in the warehouse area of a particular company that we shared there. And you're still there, I understand, right?
Yes.
And you said how many years?
39.
39 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that is a blessing to be employed with an organization that long. So congratulations on that as well. But what we're going to get into, I understand, and you are a ordained minister.
Yes.
You're a published author.
Yes.
So we're going to dive right on to the meat of the subject matter here. First, tell us a little bit about your ministry.
Well,
if you can.
Yeah, I'm an ordained minister. Been ordained for 9 years now. I accepted my calling to preach in 2003 and was licensed in that year. Right now, that's what I do. I fill in for my pastor as he needs to for sermons, for Bible study. Okay. I had a ministry at the Clayton Correctional Facility for the youth. Ministry I started, and I did that for about 3 or 4 years. I've ceased for right now, giving it a rest, but I may revisit that some more later on.
Okay.
So those are some of the things.
Now, I'm going to go back because our youth of today is struggling, but still, yet we have to stay encouraged for them because they're the leaders. Now, what specifically, you say the correction center?
The juvenile detention group.
Okay.
Family juvenile detention center.
Now, what are some of the specific things that you did, when you went there to see them?
Well, I went in officially as a life coach.
Okay.
And I taught them life skills, began to motivate them to do better things with their lives other than what they had done to be in that position where they were. And I would encourage them with things of education and self-esteem, build them up, let them know who they are and their value and their worth. And they didn't deserve to be any place like that. And my hope was that there will never be anything like that again. And my program was called A Success Story.
Okay.
And I told each and every one of them that they are all a success story. Despite where they're at right now, they're a success story. As they go forth now, they'll never end up in any place like this again, and they'll be better in life.
See, again, and I told you it was a positive, uplifting young man, so there you have it. Now, you have this book, A Ray of Light.
Yeah.
And when I first saw this, I was like, man, you're a ray of light yourself. So I guess that's one reason you titled it after yourself, so what befitting name for a book. And it's a memoirs of short stories.
Yeah.
And as I went through this book, some of the things that kind of, hit home to me is some of the things that maybe my mom did, we'll talk about the stories of the birthdays.
Yeah. And
you were a child of how many kids?
9.
9 kids, and you're
number 7.
So we have that in common.
Right.
I'm also the 7th child out of 8, though.
That's right.
A family of 8 siblings with mom and dad. Both mine have gone on to glory, and yours as well. But we still managed to move on. But in your book, it talks about so many different uplifting stories. Not only they're personal to you and your family, but at the same time, a person reading this book, A Ray of Light, definitely you can find yourself in one of the stories, as you go through.
And that's my hope.
And again, it's very inspiring. One of the particular chapters that you talked about 11 dimes, and it was a story when your mom got sick, and I kind of related to that story when my mom got ill and sick just a year ago, and then your mom was ill, and you talked about these 11 dimes, and you not getting that cake. Kind of tell us about that. It was a little selfish on your part, though. But we want the readers actually to get the book, but we don't want to tell them everything that's in the book as well. But tell us a little bit about those 11 dimes.
Well, 11 dimes. It's an interesting title, right?
Yeah, it is.
You know as well as I do, growing up in a large family, Midtown St. Louis, 9 siblings, 9 children, a dad and a mom. It wasn't always easy. We didn't have the best of everything. We didn't have the best of the furniture. We didn't have the best of home. But we always had love. Mm-hmm. And I remember, try to give a snippet of a story. I was a kind of a selfish 11-year-old boy, like most 11-year-olds are. I wanted what I wanted, and I wanted it when I wanted it. My mother was sick. My mother used to always make us a birthday cake. Each child had a birthday cake that she made special on our birthdays. Mm-hmm. And my siblings all had their special birthday cakes. I had a brother who had a jelly cake. That was his favorite. And a lot of people don't know about a jelly cake. Yeah. But you take Welch's grape jelly and you make that as the icing. And it was delicious. And chocolate cake, pineapple upside down, any cake. And we all had our different cakes. And mine was chocolate. Well, my mother was sick and she couldn't make the cake. And the moral to the story is, to just fast forward, there was a moment I had an epiphany. I had an aha moment when I was 11 years old. I realized I put a tangible with an intangible. And I found out what love really is. And that's the basis of that story. I as an 11-year-old boy, made a connection with my mother in love. I realized for the first time in my life what love really was. Although I had been loved all my life, but I had never made the connection until that day, and it stayed with me. So that's what the 11 dimes, they have to read the story.
Right, they read the story.
That's what the 11 dimes is all about.
And I mean, in just going through certain aspects of the book now, with that story there, because it was a life-changing moment for you.
It was.
So how, you be number 7, how did the other siblings, because if you're kind of at the bottom, all the other kids are older, so how was that household that time there?
Because, growing up in a big family, sometimes you don't always feel like you matter that much. I'm the youngest of my brothers, 3 older brothers, and that's partly where I named Ray Charles from. Charles is a family traditional name, and all my brothers have part of their names is a traditional family name. My dad liked Ray, my mother liked Charles, as a tradition, and so that's how I got Ray Charles. But sometimes you just feel like you're not included, or you're not as loved as some of the others are. You feel like, where do I fit in? And so that's where I was as an 11-year-old boy, growing up in Midtown St. Louis. I was trying to find, where do I fit in? Do my parents really love me? What is love? I couldn't put a tangible to love at that time. I really couldn't. I was just going through the motions as an 11-year-old kid. I didn't realize.
Now, that's a big family. So now, with that going through all of that, with the large family and everything, did that help you in your decision to accept the calling as a minister? And the reason I'm saying that is I'm going to get into the promised land.
Oh.
And again, you got to get the book to know what we're talking about. So when you talk about the promised land, sharing some insights of some of the things that God speaks of and what God wants us to do, while we're here on this earth. Tell us about that.
The promised land.
The promised land.
Yeah. Well, the promised land. Yeah. I accepted my calling. Yes, my family has a lot to do with me accepting my calling. I grew up in a Christian home. I did not always live as a Christian, but I grew up in a Christian home. That wasn't on my parents, that was on me to accept it for myself, which I did not right off. I rebelled, like most people, and I did not accept Christ. I fought against that. I really wanted nothing to do, a whole lot to do with Christ because I saw how it affected my mother and my father, and they were humble people. I didn't want to be humble. I said, if that's what humble means, I don't want to be humble. I don't want people to hurt me. I saw my mother cry many times. People would say nasty things about it. And she would go pray. I said, what are you praying for? You could punch somebody. Wow. But no, she would pray. And I didn't want much to do with Christianity. I just felt like, no, that's not for me. But I realized in life, and my mother used to always say, humble is the way. Humble is the way. So that's how, my family played a big part of that. And so those things began to play back in my mind as I got older. And life began to really hit me. And I began to see how things just, things will never satisfy. You know, the temporal outside things could never fill that void in my heart, in my life. And so, I began to move in the direction of seeking God.
Wow. Well, I want you to hold it right there. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue our discussion with Ray Charles Robinson, discussing his book, A Ray of Light. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with Straight Talk with Roger Hunt.
Join us here on Preach the Word Network on Fridays at 2 p.m. for Straight Talk with Roger Hunt Unscripted. Host Roger Hunt will explore the lives of others in many arenas of our society with discussions that will inform, inspire, encourage, and enlighten those who we interact with in our daily lives. Featuring topics from the news, experts in their field, and great entertainment. Join us for Straight Talk with Roger Hunt Unscripted, Fridays at 2 p.m. on Preach the Word Network.
And welcome back to Straight Talk with Roger Hunt Unscripted. I am your host, Roger Hunt. And with me is the exciting author, Ray Charles Robinson, author of the book, A Ray of Light, memoirs of inspirational short stories and poems. And it's a good read, it's an awesome read, and I'm not just saying it because he's here. If you've ever gone through anything in your life and dealt with, whether it be trauma, adversity, being angry, being mad, whether you're mad at God, whether you're mad at your family members, or whatever, this book here, and I'm telling you, it is actually a self-read, a help to whatever it is that you may be going through, because it deals with quite a bit of things. One of the other, chapters in the book, you talked about sleep, where you mentioned that you went to have a visit with one of your relatives, and I think before I asked about the Promised Land and your decision to go into the ministry, but part of it. But tell us about that story when you had that visit with your brother. This is a very interesting story, and it's called Sleep. I'm going to read something real quick, Ray. And it says, "It is the vein that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for he gives to his beloved sleep." And that's out of Psalms, the 127th division of Psalms, verse 2. And it's interesting that, and it's so true, because he gives us rest. But with you having to go off, visit your brother, and tell us what happened from there.
And I was a rambunctious, to say the least, young man. I was riotous, just put it plain. I was living a riotous life, doing everything I was old enough and grown enough to do. And once again, I was wrestling with the fact of Christianity. I still didn't really want much to do with Christianity. I respected those who were Christians, and I tried not to step on any toes, but I wasn't convinced. So my brother, my next older brother above me, he was in the Air Force at the time, and he was stationed in SAC headquarters, Bellevue, Nebraska. I always say Omaha, Nebraska. So he gave his life to the Lord. He became a born-again Christian. And my mother told me, she said that, his name is Hector. She said, Hector is a born-again Christian. I said, Hector? I know my brother. I mimic my brothers in a lot of ways. I said, he's what? And she said, well, he's given his life to the Lord. He's a born-again Christian. I said, I got to go see him. I got to find out what cult got my brother. I did. I said, I got to go visit. I got to find out what's going on with my brother. I got a Greyhound bus to Omaha, Nebraska to visit my brother because I wanted to find out what's wrong with my brother, that he gave his life to the Lord. I know my brother.
Says there's no way in the world.
This man, something's got to be wrong. So I went and visited my brother, and it was true. He had given his life to the Lord. He was a totally different person. And he got married at the time. He and his wife, they were both born-again Christians. And I told him the reason why I was there. He said, well, Ray, I'm glad you came, man. I'm glad to have you. And so, come and go to church with us. Go to church. I did. I accepted that. It was an Easter weekend. And it was the first time in my life I saw men worshiping God, holding their hands up and just worshiping God. It was so peaceful. It was so surreal. And I had an experience. I felt something. I felt the Holy Spirit for the first time in my life. I felt him impress upon me to do the same. Now, I didn't. I resisted it. I just sat and I watched everyone. And I didn't stand up or anything like that, but it stayed with me. That experience stayed with me. And at the time, I wasn't getting very much sleep because I was living a righteous life. And when I tried to lay down and get sleep, I was pretty much tormented. I didn't sleep much. I didn't sleep much. I wrestled with myself. I wrestled with life. I wrestled with issues. And sometimes I wake up in a cold sweat. Sometimes I just wouldn't sleep. I just didn't get a lot of sleep.
So you felt the Lord tugging at you from that experience.
From that experience,
that your brother.
I came back home and I tried to continue my riotous living. I did not give my life to the Lord at the time, no. But it stayed with me. And I tried to continue my riotous living, and nothing was the same.
Wow.
I don't know, what have these folks done to me? And nothing was the same anymore.
Now, so when you say riotous living, which is out with some other friends that you all were just doing anything and everything that, things that mischievous kids would do?
Yeah, it was the late 70s and 80s, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
So now, did they even look at you change, like, what's going on, Ray? We got to do this. This is what we're supposed to be doing. Did you get any of that from the groups that you were hanging out with?
Yeah, when I came back and I tried to live that life, and I was still going back and forth, but it was one night when I came in and I was still living with my parents. I hadn't left home just yet, and I came home from being intoxicated under different influences. I'll just leave it at that. And my mother was crying. And I never wanted my mother to cry about anything I've done. And so I heard my mother crying, and I asked my mother why she was crying, and she told me why she was crying. She said because of where I was living. And so I'm fast forwarding. There were a lot of things that culminated up to that point. People have been talking to me and praying for me. And so that night, I decided to give God a try. I said, okay, I'll try. I'll give my life. I got on my knees and I said, God, I don't know how to pray. But if you take all this away from me, if you help me, I'll serve you the rest of my life. And I meant it. I truly, truly meant it. And that night I slept like I was on a cloud. I remember it so vividly. And it wasn't because of any narcotics I was on. No, I know the difference. And I was sober. I slept like I was on a cloud. And I remember sleeping and resting. I mean, actually resting. My body was resting. And I woke up that next morning and I felt so refreshed. I felt light.
Peaceful.
Peaceful. Everything was lifted off of me. All my past mistakes and sins and things like that. I didn't have that guilt anymore. It felt free. I felt so free. And I'll never forget it. And I got back down on my knees. I said, okay, well, God, what do I do next? What do I do next? And so from that point on, He said to serve me and worship me and read his word. And so that's what I've been doing.
Wow, awesome.
I ran into a lot of conflict over it. A lot of people that were friends of mine, they rejected me, and I shared with them, but they rejected it.
And it's interesting because they rejected Jesus, and we can talk about the gospel of Jesus Christ because he was rejected by men,
Right.
and so shall we be rejected, you know,
So shall
because
we
we know us or say us, recite his word, and what have you.
Yeah.
You know, I like fishing
Yeah.
and everything, and I don't know about you, you know, a lot of them, you know, go fishing, but the fishing rod, you know, you get a fishing out, you know, it's like,
It's fun.
there's a story said, I'll make fishers of men of you.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't work, you don't eat, you know. But again, you gotta read the book.
Yeah.
But with the fishing rod,
Gone fishing.
gone fishing, and the rod and everything, tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, I think that's very pertinent for the day we live in.
Most definitely.
We've experienced a tremendous upsurge in racism, prejudices in our society. You can label it, you can give it blame to one thing or another,
Right.
but we know that it's real. It's in our face. I had prejudices of my own. As a black man, as a man of color, African-American man, I did not trust people outside of my race.
Wow.
And this is even after I gave my life to the Lord. I hope that's a wake-up call to some people. Yeah, this is after I gave my life to the Lord. I still struggle with wanting to be around or wanting to even befriend or try to talk to people who were outside of my race. I just didn't trust them.
Wow.
I didn't trust people who were not outside of my race. And so I was at work, and I worked around predominantly people who were not my color.
Right.
And so, but you know how to tiptoe around things.
Right.
You wear a mask. So, but one day, an older guy, about the same age as my father, a Caucasian man, and he approached me, and he asked me, he said, have you ever been fishing? Just out of the blue. He starts talking. I said, no, I've never been fishing. He said, was it good for you? He said, fishing is fun. And so as we talked, and the next day we talked, and the next day we would talk. And so finally, the barriers began to break down. I began to see that this man is no different than my father, just a different color. And the things he liked, they're good things. He never mentioned me being different. We never talked about race. He just talked about life. And that opened my eyes. It opened my eyes. He never talked about me being a black man, him being a white man. He just talked about life.
So about how old were you when all this was going on? So this has been all your life, or
This had been up to the point where maybe I was 20, 25,
Okay.
26, somewhere in there. And so that experience helped me. And from that point on, and he brought me a fishing rod and reel.
Wow.
He said, here, I want you to go fishing. That was the first rod and reel I've ever had. I'm born and raised in the city. I never really did any fishing. And so he brought that rod and reel, and he said, here, Ray, go fishing. It's good for you. Go fishing. And I took that as a goodwill gesture. You know, once again, he grew up in the same area as my father, which was under the Jim Crow laws and things of that nature. But it was a goodwill gesture. And I think as people, we just began to learn to accept other people, talk to people, and get outside of our box,
Right.
get outside of our comfort zone. We'll see that we're more alike than we are different.
Right.
And all these walls of racism and evil, that's of the enemy. That never came from God.
No.
God never says anything about dividing us because of race. Never, ever. The only thing God doesn't like is sin. So, but that, in a nutshell, that's what that story is about. It was with me being made aware that we're just people. And to break these walls, these barriers down, all these prejudices and all these preconceived notions, they come down if we just talk to each other. Just talk to each other.
All over the building, if you feel good, like James Brown say, baby, baby, baby. I love it. Giving honor and giving glory to Christ God, who is the Lord and Savior over my life. I go by integrity, It's integrity spelled with the N. I took the I off of it because I'm an imperfect person. A work in progress. God is still working on me, but like Paul said, I'm pressing towards the mark. If that's all right, say yeah, yeah. Now, before I begin, I just want to extend my thanks and my gratitude and my appreciation to Roger for allowing me to come out and rock out with y'all. Can y'all give him a hand? Yeah. Now, I also want to extend my thanks and my gratitude to you amazing people. You guys are an amazing audience right now. You deserve a round of applause. Give yourself a hand. The ones and twos. Check it out. See who know it. Just vibe, just vibe. Just vibe, just vibe. Just vibe, just vibe. Living life to the fullest. Just vibe, just vibe. Living life to the fullest. Just vibe, just vibe. Living life to the fullest. Just vibe, just vibe. Hey, look, just vibe. My J's on, my shades on. I'm laced up, I'm prayed up, I'm praised up. I feel good cause I'm changed up. I'm wildin'. I feel like I'm in the Virgin Island. Depression is a choice, so I choose to not have it. That stress is a habit, but I choose to not have it. Praying to God for that, cause it bounce back like a rabbit. And I deny this flesh daily, so those bills don't fake me. Sometimes they do. I make the minimum payment, but I know he got me. So I trust him faithfully when I'm low in faith. Time to go down on my knees. El Shalom, who he be, he will give us perfect peace. So when you see me, you gon' know that come on y'all. Just vibe, living life to the fullest. 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 Just vibe, my shades on, I'm laced up. Just vibe, this game on, I pray on through that hate stuff. Just vibe, my shades on, I'm laced up. Just vibe, this game on, I pray. Y'all ready? I got no time for the best. I got no time for the stress. Cause see, life is too short. I got no time for the mess. I got no time for the stress. Cause see, life is too short. You see, most of us are stressed out because we don't have much money or our bank account is not exactly what we want it to be. But I'm here to tell you, if you got $2 or $3 to your name, you're doing all right with me because some people ain't got that, you dig? Hey, I hope you feel it. I'm trying to speak about this realness. Stress is no respecter of persons. It's affecting billions. Black, white, and Hispanic. Sending people in panic. Causing these suicides and families don't understand it. Depression is the weapon. Just calling the Smith & Wesson. We take it straight to the head. Now we blowing out our melons. Trials and tests is fit to make us strong and to carry on. Saying hold on till our spirits God carry on. You heard that cliche. What don't kill us and make us strong. So whenever we pray, have faith, we gon' overcome. And whatever he say, in his word is gon' come to pass. So when they ask you any stress and tell them, nah. Just vibe, all over the building like this. Just vibe, my shades on, I'm laced up. Just vibe, this game on, I pray on through that hate stuff. Just vibe, my shades on, I'm laced up. Just vibe, this game on, I pray on through that. I got no time for the mess. I got no time for the stress. Cause see, life is too short. I got no time for the mess. I got no time for the stress. Cause see, life is too short. Check it out, look. Just vibe. Just vibe.